I don't think I really gotten through all the way. That I didn't let down, everybody in my family, and it was just. I think I'm still trying to get through that part. Still to this day. I try to give myself grace. Everybody says give yourself grace. It's so hard for me to do that. At the end of the day, it's my fault, and I let everybody down.
Brittney Griner breaking down in tears, Aliyah Boston carrying her squad like a true powerhouse, and the Indiana Fever storming into the semifinals for the first time since 2015. Nobody saw this coming. Analysts swore it was impossible, not with half the roster banged up and no Caitlin Clark to lean on. So how in the world did Indiana flip the entire script? And what does Griner's emotional breakdown reveal about her future in the league? People are already whispering. Did Aliyah Boston just dominate Griner so badly that it sparked real retirement talks? Is this really the beginning of the end for one of the biggest names in women's basketball? Drop your thoughts down below because this is getting wild. 6 players injured. That's how many the Fever were missing when they walked into Game 3 in Atlanta. And still, against all odds, they punched their ticket to the semifinals. Think about that for a second. Caitlin Clark out. Sophie Cunningham out, Sydney Colson out, Chloe Bibby out, Ari McDonald out, Damiris Dantas out. Practically half of Stephanie White's rotation sitting on the bench in street clothes, looking like spectators instead of competitors. And yet somehow, Indiana still snapped a playoff drought that had dragged on for nearly a full decade. The last time this franchise won a playoff series, Tamika Catchings was still holding it down as the face of the team. And now here we are again, witnessing history being rewritten right in front of us. Back when Stephanie White was steering the Fever toward a finals run and Natasha Howard was just stepping into the league, Indiana fans still believed in big moments. But over the years, all they got were early exits and endless rebuild talk. That all flipped on Friday night in shocking fashion. Analysts swore Indiana had no shot, not without Clark's deadly shooting or Cunningham's hustle and firepower. Some experts even said Atlanta's depth would crush them. But instead, it was Indiana that looked like the squad running at full strength, leaving everyone in disbelief. Inside Gateway Center Arena, the vibes were electric and honestly strange. The place felt like it had split loyalties, but by the second half, Fever fans were so loud you could hear them drowning out Dream supporters. Imagine that in an elimination matchup in Atlanta that suddenly had the energy of a Fever home game. That raw noise gave Indiana the kind of fuel you can't measure on a stat sheet, and it carried them straight through crunch time. And don't get it twisted, the injured stars were still part of the fight. Clark was rallying non-stop from the bench. Cunningham looked like an extra assistant coach out there, and Bibby was glued to every single huddle. Even off the court, they turned into a 6th man. And that spirit made all the difference. Sims slicing through the lane, crossover left to right, floats it up, bucket. Plays like that made you realize just how personal this win really was for Indiana's lineup.
And Mitchell's been quiet for a while. Not anymore. Jordan Canada with another assist. A big bounce back night for her. Mitchell dribbles behind the line to take the 3. Howard with the one-handed rebound.
This wasn't just Aliyah Boston's first playoff series win. It was Kelsey Mitchell's first taste of postseason glory, too. And for Lexi Hull, who fought her way into the rotation through pure grind, it felt like long overdue validation. Every single player who stepped on the floor had a role, but for those names in particular, this moment hit different. After the chaos of Games 1 and 2, it felt like justice. The officiating had fans furious. Blown whistles, missed calls, and sketchy decisions in crunch time. But instead of letting it break their focus, the Fever locked in for Game 3 and slammed the door shut on Atlanta once and for all. Think about it. Atlanta had the healthier roster, the supposed edge, and their own home floor behind them. On paper, the Dream were built to cruise. But Indiana countered with nothing but grit, togetherness, and clutch playmaking exactly when it mattered most. And when Atlanta started to crack in those final minutes, it wasn't talent that decided it, it was resilience, plain and simple. And now, all that grit sets the stage for the real headline, Aliyah Boston's head-to-head showdown with Brittney Griner. It was the ultimate signal, a clear changing of the guard in the paint. So why was Brittney Griner parked on the bench for most of an elimination game? That's the part that left fans stunned. We're talking about a player who, for years, was the face of playoff basketball inside the paint. Anytime the postseason rolled around, she was the nightmare matchup. The shot-blocking force who could flip momentum with a single swat or a silky hook shot that nobody could stop. But in this series, and especially in Game 3, Griner wasn't even trusted to close it out on her own. That alone screams just how fast the tables have turned. Boston read the moment beautifully. For over a decade, Griner built her reputation on sheer dominance, outmuscling matchups, using her quick step to cover ground, and protecting the rim like a fortress while still punishing slower bigs on the other end. Back in the day, she could rack up double-doubles without breaking a sweat, making it look effortless. But against Indiana, none of that old dominance showed up. She couldn't find her rhythm scoring, her rotations looked slow and heavy, and the Dream couldn't even lean on her defense to cover holes anymore. The anchor had become the liability, a brutal truth nobody expected to see this soon. Meanwhile, Aliyah Boston turned into everything Griner used to be, and more. She stuffed the stat sheet with 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. But it wasn't just the numbers. It was the timing. Every board, every dime, every bucket came when the clock was ticking and the pressure was at its highest. That's what made it clear. Boston didn't just beat Griner, she replaced her. Clock winding down. Boston locked into position, slipped through the lane, and nailed the go-ahead layup with just 7.4 seconds left, leaving Atlanta stunned with no answer. That single play didn't just seal the win. It flipped Brittney Griner's entire career highlight reel upside down in one brutal moment. But Boston's defense? That was the real masterpiece. She never went wild chasing blocks or biting on fakes. Instead, she bullied Griner off her favorite spots, angled her body like a chess master forcing bad moves, and stayed ice-cold disciplined whenever Griner tried to back her down. The result? Total discomfort. Shots that used to fall for Griner like clockwork were suddenly rattling out. By the third quarter, you could actually see the frustration boiling in her face. And here's the key difference. There's losing to talent, and then there's losing because someone stripped away your entire comfort zone. Boston gave her zero breathing room, and the numbers make the contrast even louder. Griner's playoff averages back in her prime were double-digit points, high efficiency, heavy minutes, all-star production. But in this series, rock bottom. She posted just 2 points and 2 rebounds in one game, barely leaving a mark on the box score before getting her minutes slashed when it mattered most. Meanwhile, Boston wasn't just filling up stats. She was doing it all. 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists, literally creating plays for teammates while dismantling Griner one possession at a time. It was the kind of direct, devastating contrast that felt scripted for maximum drama. And now the whispers are getting louder. Is Brittney Griner finished as a dominant center? When your coach benches you in an elimination game, that's not just about a rough night. That screams loss of faith. Yes, Griner's career has been long and decorated with highs, but watching this series unfold, it looked less like a temporary slump and more like the final chapter being written right before our eyes. Maybe Brittney Griner really is slowing down for good. Maybe retirement is creeping up sooner than anyone expected. Or maybe she just ran into a force of nature who already looks like the future of the position. While Griner sat quietly on the sidelines, Aliyah Boston stepped into the spotlight that used to be hers.
I try to give myself grace. Everybody says give yourself grace. It's so hard for me to do that. At the end of the day, it's my fault, and I let everybody down.
And in that moment, it didn't just feel like one game deciding who advanced to the semifinals. It felt like a torch being ripped out of one legend's hands and planted firmly into another's. The old standard bowed out, the new one stood tall, and nobody in that arena could deny what they were witnessing. But here's the twist. This wasn't just about Boston shining. Indiana's survival came from a full roster effort. Kelsey Mitchell slashing, attacking, making the tough plays that broke Atlanta's rhythm. Sims running the floor like a floor general, setting the table with clutch decisions. And every role player stepping in with laser precision at exactly the moment they were needed. That collective grit was the real reason the Fever are still alive in the postseason. Think about it. 6 rotation players gone. That's not just losing depth. That's an entire game plan shredded before tip-off. Yet somehow, Indiana stitched together one of the most complete, unified wins of their entire season. And they did it on the biggest stage yet. So if it wasn't Caitlin Clark carrying the squad and it wasn't the bench stocked with its usual firepower, then who really decided this game? That's the burning question hanging over this miracle run. And the answer might surprise everyone. The answer came from a mix of leaders, veterans, and players who flat out refused to let their season die. Let's start with Kelsey Mitchell. Man, she was on another level. Mitchell set the tone from the opening quarter, carving through Atlanta's defense like it was nothing. The Dream packed the lane with bodies, hands swiping at every drive, but she still found ways to score over and over again. She finished with 24 points, 19 of them in the first half alone, and that was the lifeline that kept Indiana alive when things could have fallen apart early. Without her fearless attacks and ability to find space in tight traffic, there wouldn't even have been late-game drama to talk about. Mitchell didn't just score, she anchored the team like a superstar filling the void of another. Then came Odyssey Sims, the hardship contract pickup who suddenly became one of the most important players in the biggest game of Indiana's season. Sims stuffed the stat sheet with 16 points and 8 assists. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was the timing. That critical last-second dime to Boston for the go-ahead layup? That's composure you don't usually see from someone who just arrived not long ago. She gave Mitchell a second ball handler, a steady voice, and when Atlanta's defense collapsed, Sims knew exactly where to send the ball. No hesitation, no panic, just straight poise when Indiana needed it the most. And then there was Lexi Hull, the unsung hero who delivered the single biggest defensive play of the night. With 7.4 seconds left, Atlanta had one last chance. Rhyne Howard tried to trigger the inbound, but Hull read it like a book. She jumped the pass, made the clean steal, and just like that, game over. That one play erased any chance of a miracle comeback and sealed the series win for Indiana. Moments like that don't always shine in a box score, but make no mistake, Hull's steal was the defining sequence of the Fever's entire season. It was grit, guts, and pure instinct. The kind of play that turns a playoff run into a story people talk about for years. Brianna Turner deserves her flowers, no question. She wasn't stuffing the box score, but her defense was pure grit, the kind of toughness Indiana needed to deal with Atlanta's size. Turner's positioning, energy, and nonstop activity gave the Fever an edge you can't always measure with stats, but you could feel it every possession. Coach Stephanie White has called her the ultimate pro, and on Friday night, she showed exactly why. She rotated where others slipped, contested shots without fouling, and did all the dirty work to stabilize possessions when things could have spiraled out of control. Add Natasha Howard into that mix, chipping in with small, sneaky plays that never get the spotlight. And suddenly, you had 2 vets acting like glue, making sure this team never fell apart. Even the tiniest minutes made a difference. Michaela Timpson only got 4 minutes of court time, but she yanked down 5 rebounds in that stretch. Instant impact that flipped momentum. And Shea Petty? She buried a clutch 3 in the 4th quarter that completely shifted the vibe yet again. Those are the kinds of plays that don't grab headlines but straight up change the game, especially when rotations are thin and every possession counts. And let's not forget the bench mob. Even without logging minutes, they were loud and active. Clark, Cunningham, and Bibby were clapping, shouting, and pouring energy into every huddle. Caitlin Clark even pulled up rocking black Air Force Ones, and Fever fans swore it was a good luck charm.
Instead, Indiana looked like the team playing at full strength.
We've just been through so much this season, giving ourselves another chance in Game 3. Emotions are high. This is a group that's confidence has really never wavered. This group has continued to show their heart, their character, night in and night out.
I think we all piggyback off each other within our group and our organization.
We've been in every kind of situation you can imagine, and we've been able to find ways to put ourselves in position to win, and this will be no different.
Somebody has to lose.
That sideline presence turned into a sixth-man mentality, and when the game hit the late stages, with all the pressure and officiating drama hanging in the air, Indiana didn't flinch, not for a second. Aerial powers crashing on help defense summed it up. This win wasn't about one star carrying the load, it was layered, built on every single player embracing a role and stepping up exactly when their number was called. But now, the million-dollar question looms. If this injury-riddled Indiana squad could take out Atlanta like that, what happens when they step into the Lions' den against the two-time defending champs in Las Vegas? Taking down the Dream with 6 injured players was shocking enough. But Vegas is a whole different monster. The Fever's reward for their first playoff series win in nearly a decade. A date with the team that has been running the league with an iron grip. The Las Vegas Aces. This isn't Atlanta's young roster anymore. This is a dynasty in the making, powered by Aliyah Wilson, a player already being called one of the greatest forwards of all time. Add Jackie Young, Jewel Lloyd, and Chelsea Gray, and you've got a lineup that doesn't just win. They close games like assassins under pressure, never blinking when the moment gets heavy. And the contrast between these two squads couldn't be sharper. Indiana is taped together, still missing Caitlin Clark, still rolling with a bench gutted by injuries, still leaning on guts over depth. Meanwhile, Vegas is stacked, full strength, loaded at every position, and carrying playoff scars that turned into confidence. Just last week, they survived a war with Seattle, with Wilson dropping 38 and Jackie Young drilling the game winner with only 12 seconds left on the clock. That's what Indiana is walking into. A team that thrives in crunch time and expects to win. Boston has been nothing short of sensational, but now comes her ultimate test. Aliyah Wilson isn't just a scorer. She's a two-way wrecking force, versatile enough to guard multiple spots, dominate the glass, and still put up MVP-level numbers. Boston will need every ounce of her strength, discipline, and composure just to keep up. Because in this matchup, the paint isn't just about points, it's about control. And whoever owns that space probably decides the entire series. Indiana's next challenge isn't just physical, it's tactical. When their ball movement clicks, the Fever can carve defenses apart, creating open looks and striking quick in transition. But against Vegas, every sloppy pass, every bad shot, every hesitation turns into easy buckets the other way. That's why Kelsey Mitchell's shot-making has never been more critical. She simply can't afford empty possessions against one of the most explosive offenses in basketball. Odyssey Sims is in the spotlight too, tested as a secondary playmaker against defenders who rotate quicker, smarter, and sharper than anything Atlanta threw at her. This is where poise meets pressure, and where mistakes get punished instantly. And let's not forget the mind games. Becky Hammon put it bluntly, they haven't seen the real aces yet. That wasn't just coach speak, it was confidence. Maybe even a warning shot. Vegas is daring Indiana to prove that their grit wasn't just a one-round miracle, but something sustainable. This series will either crown the Fever as a team on the rise or expose the limits of heart when stacked against a proven champion juggernaut. But here's what makes this storyline electric. Aliyah Boston didn't just win a matchup against Brittney Griner, she flipped an entire narrative. For years, Griner owned the paint. In one playoff series, Boston walked in and claimed it as her territory. That wasn't just a breakout performance. It was a turning point for both Boston's legacy and Indiana's identity as a squad that refuses to crack under pressure. And don't forget, this was all done while shorthanded. Half their roster missing, yet they still took down Atlanta. So imagine the Fever at full strength. What happens when Caitlin Clark and the others return in 2026? Could we be witnessing the very birth of a dynasty before our eyes? So now the real question, is this the end of Brittney Griner's dominance, or just the beginning of Indiana rewriting the future of the WNBA? Let us know down in the comments below, like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen and we will see you in the next one.